2 weeks ago, summer finally arrived. We had a huge shift in the heat, and I've noticed it on every training session since then. At first, it was just easy runs where I was coming back dripping in sweat like I had been doing sprints or long distance runs. And last weekend, it caught up to me during a long ride where I ran out of water about 2/3 of the way through, ended up having to cut things short with 11 miles left because my body made that decision for me. Most runners and people who are working out in the heat know they need to drink more water, but even if they drink a ton of it, it doesn't always help and they wonder why. And this is a physiological problem everybody experiences in the heat, and once you understand what's going on, the fix is actually pretty straightforward. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Daniel Steamer. I'm a multi-certified endurance sports coach specializing in running for adults. I've personally run over 130 races, including 3 marathons, 2 ultras, 4 half Ironman, and I'm currently getting ready for my first full Ironman. And on top of all that, I help everyday adult athletes train from their first race to their biggest adventures. So we've all probably had the experience of working out on a hot summer day. It is uncomfortable, but heat is more than just discomfort. It creates a specific cascade inside your body. Under normal conditions, our bodies generate heat when we work out through the activation of our muscles, and our body cools itself by sweating. And in normal conditions, there isn't much strain on the system when that process is taking place. But in heat, things are shifted. Your body is already sweating before you've even started working out. So when you start the workout, you're adding more stress and more demand on your cooling system, forcing your body to sweat even more. Now, when you sweat, that water has to come from somewhere, and it comes from your blood plasma. As blood circulates through your body, the liquid portions are pulled out of it into your sweat glands and excreted so that your body can cool itself. But this has an effect of dropping your blood plasma volume, making your blood thicker. And thicker blood is harder to move. So your heart has to work harder, beating more frequently, to move that volume around your body to deliver oxygen to your working muscles. And this is what we call cardiac drift. As your body heats up and sweats more and your blood loses plasma, your heart has to work harder to keep you cool, even if the intensity of your workout hasn't changed, if your pace has stayed the same. We see this even in normal conditions with long distance runners, that an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the run, their heart rate is going to be higher even if their pace hasn't changed, because it's working harder to circulate that thicker blood. But when you're training in a hot environment, we see an even more severe cascade. Your heart is already working hard to cool you. Then you add that activity, which creates even more demand on your heart. Your body starts cooling itself. Your blood gets thicker. Your heart works harder. That creates more heat, and the cascade continues. And that's why when the temperature spikes, workouts are just harder. Yes, they are more uncomfortable because of the heat, but your body is actually working harder than it normally would for the same intensity of work. Now, everybody knows when you're in a hot environment and sweating a lot, you need to rehydrate yourself by drinking water. But water by itself is not enough. The other half of the equation is electrolytes. Now, electrolytes have had their marketing moment for runners in the last few years, but that marketing is mostly around cramp prevention, which is really not what you need electrolytes for as a runner. Now, don't get me wrong, cramps are one symptom of extreme dehydration, but they're not the reason sodium matters the most in the heat. And if you're already extremely dehydrated and experiencing cramps for that reason, you have a lot of other problems going on too. The reason electrolytes are so important for prolonged exercise in the heat is because sodium is the primary electrolyte in blood plasma, and it's what your body loses the most of when you sweat. And this matters because sodium is what keeps the water in your bloodstream. Without it, the fluids you're drinking don't stay in your bloodstream. Instead, they are moved out of your blood plasma into other parts of your body. And so if you're drinking lots of water without the addition of electrolytes, that cascade I talked about earlier is just going to keep happening. The water isn't enough on its own. And here's the thing, sodium depletion and dehydration kind of feel like the same thing. Fatigue, decreasing performance, and ultimately, at the extreme ends, cramping. It's different problems with different fixes, but the thing with sodium depletion is that just more water can actually make things worse because it'll dilute the sodium you have remaining. So how do you know which problem you're having? Well, dehydration tends to build more gradually and responds to water intake. And it's more likely to occur if you went into your workout already a little underhydrated. Sodium depletion, on the other hand, usually presents as you're drinking consistently, you're not really feeling that thirsty, but your fitness is still falling apart and your heart rate is climbing faster and faster than the effort normally would explain. Your heart rate is taking off because even though you're consuming fluids, they're not being retained in your blood. So just pay attention to your runs in hot weather. If you're noticing that your heart rate is spiking a lot for unexplained reasons, much earlier than you would expect, and you're sweating a lot, it might be sodium depletion on top of needing additional fluids. Now, the big thing to know about all this is that hydration advice is generally around averages, but people have very individualistic needs with this. Things like your sweat rate can vary. Some runners produce high volumes of sweat, others produce much less. Some sweat with a higher rate of sodium in their sweat, others with less. If you're on the higher end, the standard advice is probably going to leave you a bit deficient. So if you notice you're constantly struggling, especially more than other people around you, this is worth experimenting with and trying higher volumes of both fluids and sodium. So what is the right amount? Well, I just want to be clear, this is general coaching advice and not a individual prescription. But for anything under an hour, even in moderate heat, water is probably enough to get you through it. The food you're going to consume before and after will replace the sodium you need. But past an hour, you really need to start considering a sodium replacement option, whether that's tablets, powders in your water, salty foods, is really up to you. And a good starting point is something like 16 to 24 ounces of water per hour and 500 to 1,000 milligrams of salt per hour. And obviously adjust based on your personal sweat rate, your conditions, your intensity. If you're running in a very hot environment at a very intense rate, you might need to consume significantly more fluids and sodium to maintain the balance. And on top of that, the timing of consumption matters too. By the time you feel the effects, you're already in a hole, and consuming fluids and sodium is important, but it's going to take a while for your body to process and absorb that. You want to consume before you feel the effects. Start early. Be consistent. Don't wait until you feel the cascade already starting to happen. And one last thing that I want to circle back to that I mentioned before is something that people who are spending a lot of time, like long distance runners out in the heat, can experience, which is hyponatremia, a severe depletion of electrolytes. And this can happen when you're sweating a lot and only consuming water. Your body is expelling lots of salt through sweat, and then the water you're taking in is diluting the remaining salt you have to the point that it becomes critical for your body, and if left untreated, can be very serious. So if you're exercising in high heat and you feel like something is very wrong, don't push through it. Stop and get help, hydrate, replace those sodium, take a break, cool yourself down, let your body recover. So just circling back to where I started, I went for a long ride in midday sun, high heat, with bottles of water mixed with electrolytes, and I ran out of them. I tried to keep going, but my body just couldn't handle it. I was beginning to get dehydrated and hit that sodium depletion, and I knew I needed to cut things short before it got worse. And so summer's not going away. I'm still looking forward to multiple weekends of training in the heat, and so I'm coming up with a new plan to carry more electrolytes with me, to make my route go past places with water fountains where I can refill my bottles, and to make sure I am consistently taking in fluids and electrolytes to replace what I am sweating out. And so how many summer runs have you written off as just bad runs when they could have been an issue with your hydration and sodium? If you find information like this useful, please subscribe. My goal with this channel is simple: to provide everyday adults with the information they need to train well and live their biggest adventures.